I get it, you're staring at your cluttered desk, 3 cables poking out of a bulky tower, and you're wondering if you could actually replace that monster with something that just sits on the edge of your monitor without stealing the whole room. I was in the same spot last month, trying to decide whether a mini PC could actually handle the kind of work I do, a mix of spreadsheets, a few Photoshop edits, and a constant stream of Zoom calls, without making me feel like I'd taken a step back in performance. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The worry is real. Spend a good chunk of cash on a compact box and end up with a device that chokes on the tasks you actually need it for, or worse, you end up with a tower that still takes up half the desk because you couldn't find the right ports. The ASUS NUC 13 Pro Tall tries to bridge that gap. It's not just a tiny stick you plug into a TV, it's a full-blown desktop and a 5-inch tall chassis that promises desktop-class processing power, up to 64 GB of RAM, a 1 TB SSD, and 4 monitor connections. That's a lot to unpack, so let's walk through how it actually feels when you put it to work in a real-world setting. First off, the footprint. This thing is about the size of a stack of books. If you've ever tried to keep a tower on a cramped home office desk, you'll appreciate the ability to slide the NUC onto a monitor stand or tuck it behind a monitor without blocking airflow. For people who work from a coffee shop table or a small apartment desk, that space-saving aspect alone can feel like a win. Ports are where the NUC 13 really shines. 2 HDMI 2.1 outputs and 2 Thunderbolt 4 Type-C ports mean you can run 4 4K displays at once, or mix a 4K monitor with a 1080p laptop screen for reference work. I set it up with a 27-inch 4K monitor for my main workspace and a 24-inch 1440p screen for email and chat. The Thunderbolt ports also double as fast external storage lanes, so hooking up a 2 TB SSD enclosure for media archives is seamless. Most mini PCs choke when you need more than one display, but this model gives you the flexibility you'd expect from a full-size desktop. Now, performance. The Intel Core i5-13420H is an 8-core, 12-thread chip that's part of the 13th Gen H line, which is typically found in fine and light laptops. In practice, it feels snappy for everyday productivity. Opening a 30-tab Chrome session, launching Outlook, and running a couple of virtual machines at the same time didn't produce any noticeable lag. When I tossed a Photoshop file with a few hundred layers into the mix, the UI stayed responsive, though rendering a final export took a bit longer than my old tower with a dedicated GPU. That's the trade-off: you get solid CPU horsepower, but you're still relying on Intel's integrated graphics, which are fine for 2D design, video playback, and light video edits, but they'll struggle with anything that needs a dedicated GPU, like 3D rendering or high-end gaming. Thermals and fan noise are often the Achilles heel of compact PCs, and the NUC 13 isn't an exception. The chassis is tall enough to accommodate a larger heat pipe than the older NUCs, and under normal office workloads the fan stays at a whisper, barely audible above the hum of an office air conditioner. Push the system with a sustained workload, say, a long video encode, and the fan ramps up to a moderate whir, but it never reaches the screaming level you sometimes hear from small form-factor machines. The trade-off is that under heavy, continuous load the CPU temperature hovers in the high 80s Celsius, which is acceptable for short bursts but means you shouldn't expect marathon rendering sessions without occasional cooldown periods. Upgradability is something many people overlook when they go mini. The NUC 13 lets you install up to 64 GB of DDR4 RAM via 2 SODIMM slots, and the M.2 slot supports up to 4 TB of PCIe Gen 4 SSD storage. I started with 16 GB of RAM and a 1 TB SSD, and the upgrade path is straightforward: just unscrew the bottom panel, slot in the new memory, and snap the SSD in place. There's no way to add a discrete graphics card, though, so if you anticipate needing GPU acceleration down the line, you'll have to look at an external eGPU enclosure, which, while possible over Thunderbolt 4, adds cost and defeats part of the space-saving purpose. So, who should consider this machine? If you're a remote worker, a student, or a small business owner who needs a reliable, multi-monitor setup without a tower's footprint, the NUC 13 fits the bill. It's also a solid choice for digital signage or a home media server. The multiple display outputs let you drive several screens from one box, and the 1 TB SSD gives you plenty of room for local media. Creative professionals who do light photo editing, color grading, or occasional 4K video cuts will find it competent, especially if they're